right. Hello and welcome. Like you said, my name is Joshua Dimitri. I'm a principal solutions architect at Valiantys. So I spend most of my time talking with customers and other partners and basically working with our clients to build enterprise software development practices around Forge in their organizations. So, Valiantys is a platinum solutions partner. We kind of have a one-stop shop for everything Atlassian, but a big part of that is our custom development and our full stack web development team. That's where I come from. And essentially, we have focused all of our efforts toward this idea of enterprise Forge adoption. It is how do we build a development team? How do we build a development process in Forge that not only matches but can actually surpass the environment that developers might be used to in other platforms and other environments, and be able to get quicker paths to value, but also be able to have real development life cycles inside of Forge development. So let's go ahead and get started with looking at this diagram that I've got here. So I like to bring this up. This is actually a diagram that I have been using for a while now that I put together originally for Team 24, but I really like this as an outline of where all of the different Atlassian products, but also the tools that might exist in an organization that is using the Atlassian products are going to fit together into this kind of Forge adoption mindset. So on the left, we've got all the Atlassian products that you would be used to seeing. They're obviously more than just these ones. These are kind of just the main ones that I pulled out for this diagram, calling out things like Atlassian Intelligence and Analytics, and obviously Jira and Confluence and Jira Align, and kind of all the main products that you might see in an enterprise that's using Atlassian products. But the big challenge here is at any customer of any size that is substantial, they're going to have more than just Atlassian products. Even a small business is going to have more than just Atlassian in most scenarios. There are going to be other SaaS products. They're going to be, on-prem tools they've built custom. There's going to be a lot of other things in the organization, ELM suites. There are a lot of things that are going to exist around the Atlassian tools. And in the keynote earlier, they were actually mentioning as well, kind of looking at building things around the Atlassian tools along with the platform itself to build that ecosystem and platform around development. So this is kind of a diagram outlining that, where in this red box, we have basically custom tooling that's been built by the customer. And in this case, we're talking about custom applications. So, full stack applications that we're building using whatever tool. So this might be an existing tool that's been there for a long time, not using Forge because it's, like a Java project that was there from a long time ago. Integrations with external systems. This is going to be where we're calling out kind of custom built tools that integrate with internal tooling. So things like data lake solutions that already exist inside the customer. That's actually a pretty common thing when we talk with an enterprise customer, that they already have their own idea of like a data lake or a place to store all their information outside of the Atlassian tools, and they want to integrate that with the Atlassian tooling. Things like custom reporting dashboards. So we're talking about either like Tableau or Power BI or other ways of doing reporting that they've built custom, even if it's a full-on front-end app that they've developed custom. And then we go to this green box, which is just external data sources. So things like other SaaS products or other ticketing software that they might already have in their organization, and they want to integrate that with the Atlassian Cloud Platform. And you'll notice that Forge is the connector for everything to the right side. So we're using Forge as the way to take all of this information, all of this data, bring it into the Atlassian Cloud Platform so that now we have access to that data from the tools like Atlassian Intelligence and Analytics, Jira, Confluence, Jira Align. We can essentially supplement all the data in the Atlassian Cloud system with the information from all these tools, create two-way syncs, and be able to keep things up to date. And so we'll walk a little bit deeper into each of those sections here, but that's kind of the starting point, is this diagram. This is the end result of really true enterprise Forge adoption. So moving on to the next slide here, I want to start by talking about Forge as a connector and really focusing in on this right side with Forge as a part of that. So Forge is the piece of this equation that connects everything together because it is our developer platform. It's where we can go using web triggers, using apps that are going out and polling for things from an API, whatever that might look like. We are using Forge as the connection point for all of these different things. So for example, let's say I've got a custom application that was built in-house at a customer, and what they want is the data from that application to live inside of Atlassian Analytics. They want to be able to build dashboards and analytics with the information from their custom-built application. Well, what I'm going to do in order to accomplish that is I'm going to build a Forge app, and that Forge app is going to either go out and pull for updates from that source, or ideally, their custom application has some way to send events out to my Forge app with web triggers. and push that information into maybe a Jira project. Maybe it actually matches up pretty nicely with tracking things in a Jira project or in JSM assets if that works better for the data source, or into Forge storage. And then we get access to that from all the other tools. And as Kartik was talking about in the keynote as well, going into Teamwork Graph and kind of the way we're tying all the things together to have access to all the information in the system of work in one place. That's where bringing all this information in, using Forge, putting it in Forge storage, now as those features come out from Atlassian, we're going to have access to that information from all of our products across the entire ecosystem. So this is really where we connect all of those systems to the Atlassian data. We create a single source of truth with Atlassian Cloud. So we're talking about having a single place in the organization to go and find the information that we're looking for. So even if we have other SaaS products or other ticketing software, custom apps, all these different things, we can go to the Atlassian suite of products in Atlassian Cloud, and that is going to be our single source of truth for how we actually get work done and how we could track all of that work and use Atlassian for that purpose. It also allows us to create a really feature-rich custom development lifecycle using the Atlassian Cloud Platform. Because as you can see, there's a lot here to connect. This is a list of 4 different areas that might connect, but there might be a dozen in each of these categories of things that exist in a really large customer. So this is going to be able to be a reason to spin up a Forge development team to actually really be building a large-scale enterprise Forge adoption in these organizations where we want to be able to very quickly create this value of having the data accessible from that single source of truth. And now we can use this mindset to build those developer teams, to bring in that data, to build those solutions, and then to go further with a couple other examples that I'll show here as well. So I want to dig into one of the ways that we do this, and that's going to be with integrations. Let me get this slide going forward. So integrations, I would say this is probably the most common thing that I see with a customer. So when I am working with a large customer, I'd say 80% of the things we're talking about are these integrations. What I mean by integration is some other tool that they have in their system that they want to do a two-way sync with. So they want to have some other ticketing software or their custom app, like I said before, doing a two-way sync with a Jira project as an example. Now, this diagram here is relatively simplified. This is kind of like the simplest example of building a Forge app that accomplishes this integration. It gets a bit more complex from here in some cases, but at a basic level, this is really what you're doing. You have the external system and you have Jira, and in between, you have event triggers and web triggers from Forge, where basically from the external system, let's say you update a ticket in an external ticketing software, then that's going to send a product event from that software to a web trigger that we have on our Forge app, which is then going to update that value in Jira. And when you change values in Jira and you update things on the Jira side of things, then that's going to send off a product trigger, event trigger in the Forge platform to go send off an update to the external system. So essentially, it's just that two-way sync mindset using Forge and creating this entirely within the Forge platform. Now, where this does get a bit more complex is where you have scenarios where you have to store some information in between. You have to have a queue in between these, maybe. You have to store the relationship between the external system and between what's in Jira. And that's where Forge storage comes in. So if you're building one of these for a customer that has really complex, large needs, then what we end up doing is we use Forge storage. And in a lot of cases, we've actually been experimenting with the SQL EAP, and excited to see that go into preview now so that we can continue to use that in production now for the apps that we built using it, where you use Forge storage to track all the values coming through this. You can actually have your mappings between those two stored in Forge storage and then create like a configuration screen for those mappings. And that allows you to build an app that's pretty fully featured just in the Forge platform. And what that is going to accomplish is it's also going to create the ability to have a lower infrastructure cost for the customer. So you're going to have scenarios where rather than having to spin up, some AWS instance or on-prem server to store all that information, all of that data, especially if this integration is with, let's say, a data lake solution that exists inside of the customer's instance. A lot of data is passing through that. We've had scenarios where this is actually like millions of tickets happening, in like the course of a week. So that's a lot of data, and so you have to be able to handle that. And so we've basically been stress testing the SQL database to see how much of it can handle. And in the past, we've had to do all of that with on-prem or other services. And so we're seeing more and more of that go into the Forge platform, where the cost to the customer over time, especially because they're no longer having to maintain that server on their instance, is much lower from the infrastructure side of things. And that allows us to create this process where over time, as we build more and more of these integrations using Forge, using the platform, we actually will end up seeing that more and more of the customer's tooling ends up in Forge and the Atlassian cloud platform. And there's a huge benefit to that for obviously our ecosystem, because we want everybody to be using Atlassian products because that's where our work is happening. But it also means that to the customer, all of their information has that single source of truth. And so as we build more and more of these integrations, that happens more and more often. So going on to another example here, I want to talk about custom apps and dashboards. So I've actually pulled this example on the screenshot from our Forge Bootcamp offering. A lot of the things that we do, and I'll talk about it a little bit here in a second, involve training and enablement. And one of the things that we have is a 2-day intensive Forge Bootcamp, and this is actually the app that we spend the course building with anybody who attends it. So basically at the end of it, we build this bank loan application manager as an example of the kinds of things that you could build in Forge that you might not immediately think about. So we're essentially using Forge to build fully featured front-end apps and really full stack apps as well. So we're essentially using the Atlassian cloud platform as the back end for the front end that we want to build. And in this case, it's, let's say, a form for a bank that wants to have bank loan applications and be able to manage those. And they want to store all of that information in the Atlassian cloud platform because that's where all their work is being done. The actions that are going to happen on top of this information when somebody submits a loan application, those things are going to be handled by the Jira system tracking how those things are being done. The actual teams that care about this information live in the Atlassian cloud platform already. So let's just go ahead and build the application using Forge in the Atlassian cloud platform. And that means that we have a lot of options here to extend the feature set into that platform directly. So the information that's stored here could be stored in Forge storage. It could be stored in a Jira project. It could be stored in JSM assets. We can even put things into a Confluence document. So they make a loan application, and we kind of take all the information and make a Confluence document for it. There are many possibilities of what we could do here, but we're building our full-scale applications and developing those in the Forge platform so that it is accessible to that single source of truth that we have in the Atlassian cloud platform. So as this continues over time, what we'll notice with our larger customers is that when they come to us asking for a new feature to be built, asking for a new application to be built, they have a new area of the business they want to kind of expand into, we'll solve more and more of those problems using Forge, because using Forge to do that gets them that single source of truth where everything is kind of based off the same platform. It also allows us to tailor everything specifically to the needs of an organization. Now, this is going to be a little bit different from the mindset that you might see from a marketplace partner versus a solutions partner. So we are a solutions partner, which means that we aren't really building applications that are kind of on the generic side of things and posting them onto the marketplace where people can purchase them. We have IP internally of applications that we've built and processes that we've built that a customer comes to us and asks for a custom implementation of. And we either build it from scratch or we take IP that we've already developed and we customize that to the customer and to what they actually need. So it allows us to do that much quicker using Forge and the Atlassian cloud platform because of the fact that we've got this already built into our demo sites in Atlassian Cloud and in Jira, whatever platform part of the platform is using. Customer comes to us, they give us access to their site, and we just immediately load it on and start customizing it. And the time to actually executing on their requests is a lot faster that way. It also means that we just have all these built-in extension points already there through Forge. So all the things that you're hearing from the keynotes and other talks and all the new features coming out in Forge, because the application is built in the Forge platform, they're all available to us as ways that we can extend the feature set of this application that we're building. And it allows us to get that enterprise Forge adoption mindset going further, because it allows us to solve every problem with Forge rather than just occasionally building an app that uses Forge. All right, so one more area to talk about is reporting. So ELM suites or data lake solutions, Tableau, Power BI, all of these things exist in customers, especially of larger sizes. And how are we going to handle that? How are we going to deal with the fact that we need to handle some sort of observability and reporting inside of Forge? Obviously, we have Jira Align and we have other areas of the business. We have Atlassian Analytics. All of these things are great tools and we use them across the board. But what happens when somebody comes to you requesting features that aren't necessarily solved by those out-of-the-box solutions? So this screenshot is actually an example that we built for a customer that still uses it today in production that we're still working on adding features to. They had Jira Align and they liked it, but they wanted essentially a higher level roadmap They went beyond, basically even higher level than what they had in Jira Align, specifically because they wanted to have executive level leadership be able to look at the dashboard and not really have to care about the fact that it's within the Atlassian platform. So this is actually a really great example of how we are looking for adoption that goes beyond just the people who live in the Atlassian platform day in, day out because they're doing their work through there. Your C-suite executive level people that are looking for reporting in these larger companies, they might not spend their entire day in a Jira project, but they still want to see this reporting. And if our single source of truth is from our Atlassian cloud platform, then we need to use the Atlassian cloud platform and that data inside that platform to build that reporting solution. So what we did is we built this application in Forge, and it sits on top of all of the data that exists in the Atlassian cloud platform. We're using the APIs to kind of pull out the data that we need, along with enterprise insights to pull some data from Jira Align. And we're combining all of that data into a single solution. We actually use a separate database to store all of the relationship between these points of data. We have different areas where we're kind of like remapping the information so it's easier to consume for the solution that we built here. And more over time, that's moving into Forge storage with the SQL database, and we're seeing that has created a lot of possibilities on that front. And then we present this to the customer in a way that we can create this global app that we're building and show it to an executive level leadership where they don't actually have to care that this is a Jira project. They are just looking at this dashboard to see the overall initiatives that they want to actually be keeping track of and looking at from day to day. So we're able to go beyond adoption just in those people, like I was saying, that are living in Jira or Confluence or whatever tool day in, day out. We can actually present reporting dashboards to people that are maybe a bit above and higher level than just the Jira project itself, using a solution like this that we can custom develop. Now, going beyond that, Atlassian Analytics is actually a really, really important piece of this equation, because a lot of the reporting that we do, especially if it's a little bit below that executive level, and they probably do live in Jira or Confluence day in, day out, well, we're going to want to have that built into the platform, and Atlassian Analytics provides a lot of tools out of the box to help with that reporting. So we have a lot of ways that we can bring in the information to analytics through the Atlassian Data Lake and just build reports out of the box that work for the customer's needs and allow us to kind of get that value much more quickly. And then going beyond just the built-in tools in Atlassian Analytics, we can then use the Forge chart functions and allow us to build UI and build different elements in Forge that allow us to basically have it look like Atlassian Analytics. So we're able to say, hey, we want to take the same charts, the same tables, the same graphs that are being built in Analytics and build those into a custom solution that goes maybe beyond what the out-of-the-box tools and Analytics can do, or is just more specific to the particular needs of that customer. So it allows us to take the entire cloud platform, roll it up into Analytics, create the dashboards that way, and then if we need to go beyond the feature set that exists just in Analytics, then we're able to use Forge to extend that even further and create fully custom front ends that use the same charts and graphs that are being built from Atlassian Analytics, so it has still that cohesive look and feel of the Atlassian cloud platform and Atlassian Analytics. And it also has this idea of essentially supplementing the data that we have in the Atlassian cloud platform with external sources. So another area where we can actually build reporting. So this example right here, this enterprise roadmap that we built, it actually also pulls data from Google Sheets. And that's another source that comes into this application to provide it with timeframes for different releases. So it's an example of bringing not just the data that's already in the platform, but also other data outside of the platform into our reporting solutions, into any solution that we're building. So we're able to go beyond, once again, that kind of like the walled garden that we can start to see with bringing in all the data from the same platform and expand that out into really what the enterprise looks like from a kind of wall-to-wall mindset of integrating Forge into the process of our development lifecycle. All right, so the last thing I want to talk about here is really going to be one of the more important things, in my opinion, which is building a Forge development team. And what does that actually look like? So we've talked about kind of all the areas that we might be able to build integrations, build reporting, build full stack applications with extensive front ends. What does it look like to actually build a team to do that? And what are the important pillars of doing that part of the process? So there are kind of three main areas that I would argue are the most important when you're looking at how to build a Forge development team. The first one is training and enablement. And there are many ways to go about this. At Valiantys, we take training and enablement very seriously because we think it's crucial to have consistent learning, consistent growth. And essentially, we also believe that anybody who is able to teach what they're doing will learn what they're doing better. And that's a really good way to grow the skill set of our team. So, historically from our organization, we've always had training offerings that have been really successful and popular, and we kind of expanded that into Forge, where we have the Forge Bootcamp offering now. I'm about to give you a link here that actually have a discount to it in case you are interested. But whatever path you go down for training and enablement, have a path for your team or whatever team you're looking to train to upskill new developers or developers that have been using Forge but haven't really gone deep into the feature set yet to actually become a development team that goes beyond just building a Forge app here and there. Because there is some training out there that for any platform that's just, here's how you build an app, and it's a very simple example, doesn't really go beyond that. But the training that we offer and the training that we urge you to look for is any sort of training that kind of goes beyond just the here are the features and the same thing as the documentation, and actually goes into, based on real world experience, how do you actually build a solution for a business use case that you need to solve for. So the next pillar of kind of building a Forge development team is solution design. And what I really want to call out here is that you want to go beyond just looking at being handed a spec for an app to build and building that app. So an important part of adopting any sort of platform at an enterprise level is to be really thinking about the business needs that you are solving with the applications and the solutions that you're building. So rather than just being handed, here's an app that I want, build that, and then handing back the app that was requested, if somebody comes to me and says, hey, I want XYZ features for this application, my first question will be, okay, can you explain to me what those features are going to accomplish for the business unit that cares about them? And it's going to be taking that conversation further to what am I actually solving for the business with the features that I'm building, so that as I'm actually developing the application, I am thinking about it in context of what we actually need to get out of the application. I'm not just talking about, I'm going to build this feature so that the user that asked for it has access to it. It is, okay, what is that going to accomplish for the business, and how can we push basically everyone's initiatives forward and create a platform that continues to grow with the features that I'm building, and how does it all kind of tie together and roll up to those greater initiatives? And that's going to be the difference between, when you look at kind of like a software developer and a software architect, right? It's leveling up beyond just the building features that are requested, going into the space of designing a solution that meets those business needs and actually accomplishes goals outside of just accomplishing a feature that was requested. The last piece here is Forge Style Guide, and really the pillar that I'm talking about here is just consensus on best practices and understanding the path forward. If you were at the talk that Zishan and I did earlier, it was all about the Forge Style Guide. I'm going to give you a brief explanation of it here in case you weren't, but the Forge Style Guide is our resource that we created for the community to engage with. Basically, it's a compilation of what we have found to be best practices, what we have found to be the common solutions to problems that you might interact with or you might come up against. And it allows us to basically have a single place to document the actual best practices and learnings that we've had throughout Forge development. The intention of it is to be a living document, so we actually don't want it to just be us communicating to the community, here's what we think is the best thing. There's actually a GitHub link on the style guide where you can go in and make a pull request for things to add or change or remove, and basically create conversation as a catalyst for that community involvement to build the platform, create growth in the platform. And as we're kind of going through this process of transforming businesses into these, enterprise cloud organizations with Atlassian Cloud Platform, it's going to be really important to have that consistent way of developing applications with best practices and with commonality between the entire community so that we can kind of bring everybody up together and build applications that solve those business needs more effectively. All right, so those are kind of the three pillars that I'd say for building a Forge development team. It's how we approach it at Valiantys. We actually have weekly meetings where we go over these things like the Forge Style Guide, Forge Bootcamp, and also we meet with customers every single day. That's essentially what most of my job is to meet with customers and do the solution design part of that equation. And so we have found that, if you do these three things, then you're going to have a Forge development team that really builds that enterprise Forge adoption in a way that, goes beyond just basic app development. All right, so the last thing here is just a thank you, and also that this is the link here for the Forge Style Guide. So if you go to the Forge Style Guide link, you will also see at the top a banner for 20% off the Forge Bootcamp offering that we have. We have a public offering coming up that anybody can get like a single ticket for. We can also do trainings that are like private to the organization, where you can get a certain number of seats and you can bring that many people to the course, and we'll tailor it exactly to what you want to see. So if you're interested in that, go to that link. Even if you're not interested in the bootcamp, the Forge Style Guide is, like I said, a great resource, and we hope to see the community engage with it, have conversation around it, submit pull requests to kind of help us move forward the community in a way that we can have this consensus on best practices. So hopefully you find that helpful. And we also have some stickers in the back as you're walking out with this link on it and like a little, funny saying on it. So if you want to grab one on the way out, they're on the table in the back. So feel free to grab one there. We do have some time left for questions if you have any. So some Q&A here if anybody has a question.